So this video will walk you through the very basics of IWARS. IWARS, Infantry Warrior Simulation, is a constructive simulation that is focusing on the small unit. And it's used for analysis of new technology and new tactics that can be implemented at the small unit level. When you load IWARS, the first thing that pops up is a data warning, with huge red letters saying the default IWARS database does not contain valid data. So that's pretty important. However, the areas where the data is the most invalid tends to be the vehicle models. For much of what we're doing, we're going to be focusing on human performance and rifles, direct aimed weapons, and most of that data is actually pretty good in IWARS. So we can hit OK, and in this window we now have the option to create a new scenario or open a recent scenario. I'm going to go ahead and open a recent scenario just so we see what a model looks like after it's been fully built out. So it takes a second to load. The model that I'm opening is a cordon and search model. We have our blue force up here. They load up into these Bradley fighting vehicles, drive down into the McKenna mount site at Fort Benning. The first group establishes an outer cordon around these buildings, and the second group dismounts and actually goes into these buildings. At the very top, you can see the toolbar. So the toolbar, all the usual things that you expect. So file, this is where you save, open, create a new scenario. You have your tools, you have your simulation settings, view, layout, extensions, help. One critical thing to always remember is layout. Oftentimes you might not be able to find what you're looking for, or your screen might look weird. So it's useful to go to the default layout. So you go to Layout, Presets, Vertical Stack, and it converts back and creates the default layouts. The second row over here is your quick launch. And there's a lot of good things in here. This is a new model. This is opening. This is mission builder. This is where we actually define the activities that our soldiers are doing. This is where we validate, we check for errors. This is the intervisibility tool that allows us to see what our soldiers are seeing. Default IWARS database. This is where we actually edit the underlying database that contains all the data in the model. This opens up brass, which allows us to batch run IWARS, play a simulation, pause, stop, change the speed, view the output, change what view we're looking at, ground, second floor, third floor, fourth floor, 3D view. And you have a couple of other options over here, looking at grid squares, looking at range circles. This allows you to see how far folks are from each other. Field of regard, field of view, it shows you what your soldiers are looking at. To the left, you'll see the agent pane. So this is where you have your blue forces, and if you scroll down, your red forces and civilian forces defined. So right here you can see that I have 2 infantry squads as well as 2 Bradley fighting vehicles, but no red forces on here. Battlefield overlays is where you create your paths, your node networks, and you can also create obstacles in here, and allows you to define the terrain. Scenario settings allows you to change around things like the environment, your simulation options, your body model, as well as what you're recording. And as you can see down here in the properties window, this changes based off what you're currently clicking on. The main portion of IWARS is the visualizer that's over here, which is your map that shows you what's happening and where you can add and change things. So I'm going to go ahead and run the simulation. So IWARS will run this in real time. So hit that button to play the scenario. Might take a second. There we go. It's loading up. So IWARS runs this in real time. You can see them slowly moving to the Bradley fighting vehicle. And I'm going to scroll down and click on 800 to speed it up. So they should be moving at 8 times their pace. All right, so they're moving. They're moving. So I'm going to go to first person observe, and we can see what our squad leader is viewing. So they're staying in a Bradley fighting vehicle. The ramp opens, they get out. They're now forming that outer cordon. You can see the graphics are a little bit clunky. However, they're still pretty decent. They're not as good as VBS 3, but they are pretty good still. You can go back to the ground floor view. And you can see them moving around. Speed it back up. Sometimes there's buffering issues. So with buffering issues, it results in your kind of a lag in there, and you just have to click on 800 again, and it'll speed it back up. All right, they're going to mount, then turn around. So in a second, once everybody gets to where they need to be, they'll lift the outer cordon, and all these soldiers will return to their vehicles and drive off. So that's a pretty basic tutorial. What we didn't see in there is any firing or shooting because I didn't have any Red Force agents. And adding that in is pretty straightforward. You just create the red agents and assign them to shoot. As you can imagine, IWARS is a very useful tool because in the database, so we can launch the database editor, and we'll learn all about this in a little bit. You can change all the different things, like you can change the delivery accuracy of the weapons. So this is where you would change the horizontal biases, the vertical biases, the range. You can also change the incapacitation data for if someone gets shot. So all that can be changed, and you can imagine like all the stuff that we've done so far with the methodologies, actually just building it out in IWARS. And it's a very useful tool, but it also creates that mission setting where you can actually look at the impacts of things in an operational context. One important thing I want to mention with IWARS, though, is IWARS will occasionally crash. There are some issues, there are some glitches with it. So always save. Always make sure you're saving. So File, Save, and that's basically what you need to know to start getting going with the tutorials to learn IWARS.